Hey, everybody, it is Tim Gillette, and we're back with another episode of the Tim Gillette Show. I'm Tim Gillette, your host, and as I always get to say, this is not a podcast about me, just hosted by me. I interview the coolest people on the planet. Today's guest, a gentleman named Christopher Guy. And I said to him as we were coming up here, how do you mess up a last name like Guy? I mean, I've got a last name like Gillette. People cut it up all the time, but he's got a last name Guy. Anyway, I'm sure there's some fun to this guy. I'm just telling you right now, in the brief moment I had to connect with him and what I have found out about him online, he seems like a fun guy. We're going to find out together, which is so cool about our show. So let me bring in, all right, come on, Mr. Mouse. Come on, Mr. Mouse. All right, there it is. I thought the battery died on my mouse. Hey, Christopher Guy, how are you, man?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good, man. Hey, man, you know, with a guy with a name like Guy, all right, it's a good thing you're not a girl.
Right, it is.
Are you married?
No, I'm not.
Okay, I was like, she gets to go around saying, I'm Mrs. Guy.
Right. Hopefully that'll happen one day. She could do that.
Looking forward to the day you got a Mrs. Guy, huh?
Right. I'm looking forward to it.
So, Christopher, all right, I understand you've got some pretty interesting world going on there. I glimpsed a little bit into a podcast you got going on. Tell me a little bit about this.
So the podcast I did it around my short stories that I write. And based off of that, I tried to do it like an audio drama back in the 40s and 50s before TV came around and people would sit around the radio, listen to stories. So that's the concept I come up with. And I find different people to be the characters, and I get the sounds and music and blend it together and make the story come alive like you watch it on TV.
So like it's like the old time radio hours, huh?
Yes, that was the whole concept I went to. I listened to a couple podcasts that were similar, and that's what drew me into podcasts in the first place. And I said, well, if I write all these stories, I'm not doing anything with them. I might as well let everyone else hear them. So that's how I started my podcast.
You know, I'm just curious. I mean, have you listened to Mike Rowe's, The Way I Heard It?
I listened to one episode.
Yeah. Very similar to from the night. Now, me, I grew up in the 70s, 80s, 90s with Paul Harvey.
Okay.
Oh, to me, those were like God. All right. If Paul Harvey, someone could do Paul Harvey today, Mike Rowe is probably the closest we've got to what Paul Harvey was, because the whole time you're listening, going, okay, who is it? What's the end of the story? And like, he keeps you glued to it. All right. Now, I've listened to some of yours. They keep me glued. All right. But like, it's also got me into the daydreaming. Like I'm dreaming yours. I'm picturing. Paul Harvey's at a picture. I'm just glued listening. Yours, I'm trying to paint the picture in the sky as it's happening.
Right. That was the whole concept I had, because I enjoy reading stories that have cliffhangers. So that way you never know what's going to happen next. And I wanted listeners to feel that same way, and to at least for like 10, 15 minutes the most, just take time out, visualize what they're seeing, and then have a conversation about what they just heard.
Yeah. But I mean, did you start out by doing these as writings and you just decided to put them in, or did you like, I'm going to start a book someday? What was the whole start to this?
So I always been writing since I was in middle school, and I always would write stories, and I try to write novels, but I just never had the focus to go from start to finish. I'll start something, then leave it, come back to it, scrap it, do it again. But then short stories, that was like my thing, because I could write a story, 5-10 pages, start, finish, boom, move on to something else. But I still didn't do anything with it. And then the very first podcast I heard was Snap Judgment.
Oh, okay.
And that one was the one that really drew me in. And I was like, oh, I kind of like this podcasting thing. And I started going down a rabbit hole and listen to all type of podcasting. And then once I found the audio dramas, I was like, this is something I can do. And then some of them were great. Some of them I was like, if they could do it, I could do it. So then the pandemic hit, and I was like, well, I can't keep watching Netflix and PlayStation all day. Let me do something with myself. And that's how I began the journey of doing the podcasting.
Have you got a large subscribership to it now, or is it growing, or you don't?
I just started on the 7th. That was my launch day. So I'm still brand new to it. So right now I have like, it said like maybe 135 people listen.
Yeah.
So it's slowly getting there, because I had a trailer out, and then I entered some contests where I had to create like a snippet of things so people were hearing my stuff here and there. And now it's at the point where my main following is from the US and the UK.
Okay. Where are you located at?
I'm in Chicago.
In Chicago. I'm sorry, man. I visited Chicago 2018. I think I was up there. My wife is in the medical field, and there's a conference that happens up there every year right on the river in downtown, the Becker or something conference that she comes to every year. And one year I went up because there was two people speaking as keynotes. One was former President Bush, and the other one was former President Clinton. And I'm like, I'm a speaker. I always want to hear ex-presidents speak. Right. It's just my thing. I want to hear it, And that was the two of them were speaking that year. I was like, oh, yeah. And the only thing I was disappointed is like, I wish they would have got, former President Obama. All right, because he's from Chicago. Right. Because I really can't wait to hear him speak as a non-political figure. You know what I mean? Yeah. But, that's my tour of Chicago. And I come up in May. And I said to my wife, yeah, I'll come in May. It'll probably be warm enough. And when I get there, it snowed. It snowed, yep. I'm like, the weekend, I'm like, it should be safe for me to go to Chicago now. And nope, it still snows. I hate snow. Yeah, you got to come between June and August. After that, I can't tell you what's going to happen with the weather. Yeah. Now, one thing I did learn was that like we found a place on the river, a little wine, like a wine tasting bar on the river. And they had these little like clear tent pods that you could sit inside and taste wine. Right. Of course, we get there, as we're just experimenting and find it. And then we're like, well, can we book that? And they're like, well, we're booked on them all the way through the weekend. I'm like, crap, I would love to book one and try it out. Mm-hmm. What's some cool things about Chicago that you've enjoyed over the years before the pandemic? Every summer, they have different festivals that go on throughout the city. So I enjoy that. A lot of times I run into festivals that I didn't even realize they was having. They're doing a lot more farmers markets. So I enjoy going to those things and just sightseeing and being a tourist. Even though I grew up here, it's still so much about the city I don't know. Yeah. So one of my biggest goals was to be a tourist, have one of the little fanny packs, ride a little divvy bike, and act like I'm a tourist. And I did that. And people showed me so many of the architectural things and museums that I didn't even realize were in certain places because they were hidden. So I try to do that every summer, something different that I would normally wouldn't do. So I enjoy just sightseeing and just learning about the city that I wouldn't have not learned if I didn't pretend like I was a tourist. Yeah. So what's your favorite hot dog in the city of Chicago? I don't eat hot dogs. You don't eat hot dogs? I'm not a hot dog guy. If I do get hot dogs, it's just ketchup. And people look at me crazy because like, you don't do the sauerkraut, the peppers? Yeah. No, don't do all that. Like there was a hot dog place we went to that like there was 2 stories to it and the line to order was like 3 different lines going in. And I'm like, now this is a hot dog restaurant to me. It is. Now, if you talk about Italian beefs, then that's my thing. I eat those. But hot dogs, I just never been a fan of. See, I'm from a Polish family, so you get the sausages and kibasi's and stuff like that. You think I'm into hot dogs? Oh my god! Well, there was something that we did notice about Chicago when we were there, and we took a thing called a beer barrel bus tour to tour some private breweries. Now, I don't know if you're into beer or anything like that, but like shocked at how many small little like microbreweries have popped up around Chicago. Yeah, they've been popping up a lot more because that's the trend now that people can go to a restaurant that's a restaurant brewery in one, or they do the beer crawls. They take them to more of these breweries to have more sophistication in the beers and things. So they're very nice to see the science behind it. I'm more of a cider drinker. So I do like to go to some of these and try the different ciders and things, but just to see how they make their own beers in house is pretty cool to see. Cool. I actually know. Actually responding to a friend of mine that had been waiting for 3 days to call back, telling her, no, I'm recording a podcast. I can't talk to you right now. Have you traveled then outside of Chicago with other stuff to adventure the rest of America? Yes, I just got back from Dallas. I went there for my birthday. So I spent a few days down there. The greatest city in America, in my opinion. But anyway. Yeah. So I've been there. I used to go every year before pandemic because that's why I would spend my birthday because I got family there. New Orleans is my favorite city to go to. I love that. I went to the Jazz Festival. I'm trying to get to Essence Fest whenever they open back up. The food, the culture, everything's amazing there. I've been to Florida, so I went to Orlando to go to Walt Disney World, Universal Studios. I've been to Miami,
wasn't really a fan of it because it's like you had to be in the clubs or the beach, and at that point in time, I was neither. But it's still the weather was nice.
Yeah, yeah.
I stayed in South Carolina for a little while. That was a different type of heat that I wasn't used to, and that was the first time that I was somewhere in January. It was 75 degrees and no snow.
I got experience to that when I lived in Philadelphia up north in the early 90s. I drove truck, and like every other week I was in Atlanta.
Okay.
And like in January, like the one winter, everybody's complaining about how cold it was. And I would come home after the snow was gone and then get back in the truck and leave when, and the snow would show up again. And everybody's like, man, it's been a bad winter. I'm like, this has been a nice winter for me. I've been in Atlanta the whole time driving down and back.
Now, what I found interesting, the one year I was down in South Carolina, when they had the ice storm, they shut the whole city down because they don't have salt. They use sand. So that was so interesting to me that it may snow, you shut everything down. Whereas in Chicago, it got to be a blizzard of 13 feet before they shut something down.
My daughter and I in 2001, we went to watch the lighting of the Christmas tree in New York City. And, we walked everywhere. We walked or took the subways. We really didn't, didn't have a car or anything. And the night before we watch it, we go back to our hotel. We got into our hotel probably around like 1 a.m. by the time we get back to our hotel. And like we stopped and had pizza at like 12:30 at night going, this town's alive. Next morning we get up and we're under a foot of snow and we got to take the train to get out of town. Mm-hmm. And like we're getting out walking around like there's nothing to it. And then I get to Jersey, connect with my brother who then drives me to Philly. And I'm like, oh my God, like the whole world down here in Dallas. We got an ice storm for the Super Bowl in 2011. It shut the town down for 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. Up there, we kept going. Yeah, right. Get in the car and go. Yeah. Well, I mean, you just came from Dallas. You've been traveling around a little bit. All right. The stories that you were telling in your podcast, are any of them based on your real life travels or life?
They are based off real scenarios that I've been through, and my goal was to use that so people could either personally relate to it, or they can have discussion about if they was in that scenario, how would they handle that situation.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And are you offering any with them? Is it just the stories now, or are you going to offer life lessons or something with them?
I'm hoping that in the stories, they could pull life lessons from it. Because a few people who listen to it, my first story, they really enjoy the fact of having difficult conversations. Mm-hmm. And they say it's mindful that we need to talk about those things because as men, a lot of times you try to avoid those situations because the first story is two roommates and they talk about how one doesn't allow the other one to talk. So that way, the importance of having a voice and using your voice. So that was one of the things because I deal with that a lot where people will cut me off and not allow me to talk or didn't think that my voice mattered. So that was something I dealt with. And then my other stories are other personal things, dealing with relationships and just daily trials and tribulations in life that I wanted people to at least walk away from. Yes, I could relate to that, or I haven't thought about that. What would I do if I was that person in them shoes?
Mm-hmm. So some of them are, again, I've only listened to a few. Are some of these going to come out and be down the lines of, hard to learn lessons that are going on in our world today?
It will be some things that may be tough to discuss, or some people might not want to discuss it because they want to act like, I don't want to say act like, but if it's not related to them or if they don't see it, then it's like out of sight, out of mind type thing. Mm-hmm. But it is things that I have went through that relates to what's going on today. So I do want to cover those topics. And I know there may be some pushback in some, but my goal is just to tell the story to get people to have the conversation.
So, and are you trying to tell the story from a neutral ground? So like, you're not picking a story and telling it from, this is my side, but Tim, I realize you're on the other side. I don't want to hear your opinion. You're telling it from a neutral standpoint, correct?
That's the goal. I'm trying to keep my emotions and feelings out of it, but at the same time, let people know I have experienced that. So that way we can have conversations, because sometimes that conversation can bridge the gap on some things you may not know about. And then I'm having other people now who want to be involved in it that will help me tell a story that maybe I don't know anything about, that I can learn from it as well too.
That's good. I mean, because that's the stories we need in America. All right, as we said earlier, I listened to Paul Harvey. You go back and listen to Paul Harvey, you really can't tell which side of the fence Paul Harvey was on in the story. And I mean, he made you. I'm here as a storyteller. I'm not here as an opinion giver, and that's beautiful, Christopher. I love when people do that kind of stuff. Yeah. And
that's the goal I'm trying to get. And so far, the voice actors who helped me, they said the same thing. They enjoy being part of it. And the fact that it was so neutral, but it told a powerful story, had a message. That's why they wanted to be a part of it. So
cool. You right there, you get my vote and everything, because I love that. I love a story that I can come out with it. And here's why, Christopher. If I'm listening to your story for the first time today, then a year later, I have now changed as a human being, and I hear that same story. When it's told from a neutral standpoint, I get a whole other point out of it. And that makes your story, evergreen. It's an evolving story, even though it's the same story. You recorded it once, but the person who comes back and listens a year later listens and gets something totally different out of it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm curious. I mean, was that your thought process when you were doing this, or you're just like, no, I just want to get my stories out?
That was my thought process, because I read a lot of stories where, like you said, you can hear that one story and there's 5 different perspectives of that story. So if people can't relate to it, I at least wanted to have a conversation where people could begin to either relate to it or see somebody else's viewpoint. Because like I said, my first story, you may have a person who doesn't realize that they're cutting other people off.
Yeah.
And then once they hear that viewpoint, like, wow, maybe that is something that I do. I need to really look at that. Because my coworkers who heard it, I didn't realize I did it to you, Chris. Well, yeah, I do it all the time. But hopefully the story gives you to understand that I know you don't mean it, but at the same time, I do have an opinion and my voice does matter. Yeah.
Well, I think all of our voices matter, and we have to find a way to tell it in a way that others can hear it.
Right.
Because so often I think, and you tell me if you agree with this or not, because our world today, I'm a white man, you're a black man, and so many people, they just tell the story and everybody's like, well, I'm gonna take your side because I'm white or black. And I'm like, dude, that's not it. I can relate so much to the black man from stuff I've gone through, but I don't want to be talked down to because of it. And I know many of black men and my friends, I don't like them to be talked down to because they're smarter than me. Right. Yeah. And it's probably where you're going with that is, guess what, guys? I'm not telling you this to lower myself or raise myself. I'm doing this to go, hey, are you aware this is in the world, dude? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, just to bring awareness to topics that, like I said, most people probably wouldn't even discuss had they not listened to the podcast. Then they can listen to it and get a different perspective, like you said, and have a whole different viewpoint than what they had before. Yeah. And that's it. I want to walk away with a different viewpoint. I want to walk away now going, oh my God, I listened to Christopher's story and oh my God, that guy Joe I just met at the grocery store, did I just do that to him? Now it's not me impacting my relationship with you. It's a conversation that you and I haven't even talked personally, but you've got it recorded. But now me, 1,800 miles away from you, all of a sudden impacts my life. Is that right? Right. That's right.
Yeah. Cool. That's, and now are you searching for more stories in this, or is it just every day I sit down and how often do you write, I should say?
So I try to write every day. So I've been going to different creative writing classes and seminars. Some of them, they give you like a sentence starter and I could create a story that way. Sometimes I hear a song and I come up with an idea of a story that way. I've been in these podcast community groups on Facebook. So I'm meeting people who want to help out. So I've been asking people like, what are you passionate about? Or what is one thing you could do for free? And then once they tell me that, I could come up with a story based around that. So that way, when they are the character in the story, it means more to them as opposed to me just giving them a script and they reading it because they can relate to it. They're telling their story as well. And it's something that other people can relate to, because a lot of the things that people have been telling me is a whole bunch of issues that so many people went through in their lives, as far as like people doubting their dreams or not thinking they're smart enough to do something because of their education or the color of their skin and things, and second guessing them and doubting them. So I'm coming up with all these people who have these stories that I could create to have conversations about that probably wouldn't get told had I not met this person. Yeah. But
then again, are you interviewing people out there to find out about their story and then may possibly create a story on it? Are you doing that too or no?
That's my goal. So what I've been doing now is the people who are the voice actors, once they do the story with me, I interview them at the end so they can talk about their process of how the story was for them and what they thought about it. And then they give a good conversation. Then they can ask me questions about my thought process of writing the story. And then at the end, I let them promote what they have going on. So the 3 stories I did, it was really good interviews that you could listen to on the podcast that they made me think about things I didn't even think of. One lady asked me a question about, do I feel like I have a sense of responsibility now telling stories, being a Black man in America and having people listen to it? Never thought about that, because I just was trying to tell stories that people relate to, but have a responsibility to tell a story that everyone can listen to and take something from. I take great pride in that because I want to make sure that people can enjoy it, but at the same time, take something away from it too.
Yeah, but that you just said it. I mean, yeah, I'm doing these stories hoping you get it, hoping you get something from it. That makes you a leader, all right? Doesn't make you a white man about. That makes you a leader in America, all right? Mm-hmm. Because you're actually out there trying to change people, basically with the tools you've been given.
Right.
Correct. Yeah. And to me, that's always the thing. You know what I mean? Use the tools you've been given. Most of us will be like, well, I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm not Bill Clinton. I can't be president. All right. I'm not whoever your governor is, or whoever your mayor is, or whoever your congressman. No, you're not. But you can probably influence more people than they can.
Right. I agree.
And telling stories. I have a book, and I usually have it right here, but I moved and cleaned the office this week, that was written in 1923. And it's like one of these books that I read all the time. Because it's a life growth. That lady put down life stories that she happened in 1923. And here I am, 98 years later, still reading that book and reading her stories because they impact my life. Mm-hmm. You think your stories will be around 100 years from now to impact people?
That's the goal. I'm hoping so. Because the main reason doing it, I want to leave my son something too. Mm-hmm. That he can go to and listen, know that his father did something. So I'm hoping that will be the case as well, that people can relate to the stories, hear them, and revert back to them. So 20, 30 years from now, it's an instant classic. They can listen to it. And like you said before, if someone listens to a story now, 3 years from now, they hear the same story, their whole mindset, perspective change, have a whole thought process. So that's the goal. So I'm taking it one day at a time, see what happens, and enjoying this journey of telling stories.
I love it. So do you think someday you're going to turn them into a book or no now?
That's the plan. I had a couple of my friends was asking me, would I do a book? One person said, I could see your stories could be like their own miniseries doing that. One guy interviewed me and said he could see my stories being like the Marvel universe where you got your own characters and things. So my first step was just to get my content out there. Yeah. And then to go from there to build on that to see how God's going to use this gift I have to impact other people through stories. Because I know so many people can get so many life lessons from listening to a story. So.
And you're doing it right. All right. This is what I know how to do. This is how I can go do it. And I'm not sure what tools you're using for your podcast, but I teach like my podcasting people, I teach them use simple tools. Don't worry about all this complicated stuff. Just get started with it. And we're working on it. But the idea that you're like, man, maybe someday that, I was guys books, I was going to then go in and say, you think maybe mini series out of this, but like you kind of answered that. So, and if someone came to you today and said, hey man, I want you to write for TV shows, are you game to move to Hollywood and start writing or no?
I'm game to do it. I mean, I'm learning how to write scripts right now. So if that opportunity came, I would definitely jump on it and see where it goes. But I just want to just write because I enjoy it. I don't feel like it's like a chore or a task. I just really enjoy getting lost in that world and creating characters and the plots and things. So if they came up, I would be happy to do it.
Is there a character in our world that you may like, or let's just use ones that you don't like? Let's say there's someone in the world that you don't like. Have you thought about creating a character around them, whether you then turn them into a hero or a villain?
That's not a character that I don't like, but I do like how writers can write a character that you're not supposed to like, but somehow you like them anyway. So I want to work on making a character that way. I haven't done that yet because I always have like your antagonist and protagonist in the stories, but I never wrote one where like, oh, I can't stand him, but for whatever reason, I just like him, So I want to do that. That's something I'm trying to work on.
I'm just thinking along the lines. It's like me, I get a lot of my early days before I started my coaching business. I used to get a lot of my stories and my blog posts were all about something I watched happen in someone's life, whether I agreed with them or disagreed with them. I went in and wrote about that, all right, and turn a blog post into it. And I always thought about that, how often it is. I don't watch news, but how often we could watch the news and they tell a story, of some popular story that's going on and you like or dislike the people involved. and you use them as a character than to teach from. Anyway,
Right.
that's where I was wondering if you went with that. Because that just opens up the world to millions upon millions of characters.
It does. It does.
Every day we meet a new character. All right. And in cases like me, I say that's some of my family members. It's a different character every day, but we won't go there. What is the joy that you are getting out of it right now? All right. Is it merely in the creating of the content or the anticipation of the ultimate goal?
It's the creating of the content. So once I write the story out and then I give the voice actors their part, I picture in my head how I want them to sound and say the part. And then when they send it back to me and it sounds exactly how it is in my head and I put it together, that's what makes me excited to hear the product as I'm editing and putting it together. Like, wow, I can't believe this is about to come together the way I thought it is. And then I have to go back and think about all the outside elements to make the story come alive. So that's what takes the longest, because I have to think of, if they're in this environment, you should hear this sound, or this should happen at this point. So that's what I enjoy the most, try to make it as realistic as possible. And then the second thing I enjoy is hearing the feedback from those who are the actual actors in the story, because it matters to me what they think, because they were the characters. Yeah, so when you tell me how much they enjoyed it and how their first response was how well edited it was and put together, I'm like, only been doing this for a month. Yeah. So for you to think that I've been doing this for much longer, it gives me more validation that I'm doing the right thing. I found my niche of what I'm doing.
Yeah. Well, let me switch this onto the actual way you're recording it now. Are you recording like you're getting all the actors together in a room to do this by sound, or are you just saying, okay, George, here's your lines this week. Go record these for me in separate files?
So it's that way. Most of the people I found were through Fiverr. So they're all over the United States. I found one guy that was in the United Kingdom who did it. And they'll just, I give them the script, they do their part, email me back their finished product, and then I have to blend it all together. There was only one time I did a recording with a friend of mine at his house, but everyone else, either they did it on their phone or they had some type of equipment at their house, so they would do it and they email it to me. So
are you then looking for more audio actors for this, or are you going to, in the recording process, or are you going to keep going with like freelancers?
I'm open to all. So I'm looking for recording actors, the freelance. I found a couple of people who I like to use. And then I mentioned before, I'm in these Facebook community groups that I put a post out looking for voice actors. In return, they can be interviewed to promote their business. So I found like 10 or 12 people who want to be a part of it. So we're going to see how they go. Every last one of them said, I'm not a voice actor. And I said, I'm not either. So we're just going to do it, and then we'll make it work. We're just telling the story. Just be yourself. I just want you to have fun with this. I don't want you to think like this is a whole $1 million production. I only got $20, and we're just going to make it work. So.
Well, so then, we can introduce you to my audience and say, hey, listen, you guys can go here to apply to be part of the acting, or are you finding that some of these people you just want to self-examine to find out whether they're good or not? No, I'm open to whoever. I've been in 2 or 3 different groups that they gave my name to someone, they gave them name to someone. They've been emailing me saying they're interested, and then we just have a conversation. So however they get to me, they can email me. They could go to my website. There's a section where they can shoot me an email, and we can go from there. And whoever wants to be a part of it, I'm more than welcome to take the actors and figure out how we can make it work. Cool. So then I guess, I should go, what you're saying is maybe I should go, and be involved, huh? If you would like to, yeah, we could do something, There's a story out there to be told, and we can make a story work with whoever the voice actors are. So two guys on a podcast formed a podcast. Yeah, I've never heard that story before, Christopher. Very interesting. So, well, let me switch gears one more time here before we close out today, and I want to go to some of the things that got you to be how you are growing up. Did you grow up in a traditional home, a broken home? All right. Did you complete schooling? Did you go to college? Let's talk about that. Okay, so I grew up with just my mom. It was me and my younger brother, and I went to college to undergrad and grad. I did education for about 10 years. I was a middle school teacher. Then I went and got my master's in special education. Cool. So I did that for about 10 years, and then I decided to do a career change. And I was living in South Carolina. Then I moved back home to Illinois.
And then I got into the work of working with people who've been incarcerated. So that's what I currently do, where people who get released from jail or prison, they come to my organization and I give them job readiness skills, help them with their resumes, mock interviews, how to deal with conflict, both inside, outside the workplace. And then I help them find employment. And then we keep in touch with them to make sure they get the job retention, give them supportive resources, and to make sure they don't reoffend to go back to prison. So we try to keep that recidivism rate down. So that's what I've been doing for the past 3.5 years.
That is good. Well, growing up, all right, yeah, you grew up with a single mom. Did you have any male influencers in your life that might have been like a coach, a teacher, or someone who's inspired you to keep going?
Not growing up, not until I went to college. In my senior year, I met this gentleman who I call my father today. Mm-hmm. He was like a mentor to me. Then over the years of spending time with him, like, you're more like a father to me. So that's who I call my father. Cool. So he's the one that talks to me, gives me that tough love, the advice that I don't want to hear, but I need to hear it. And he loves my son as that's his own grandson. So you couldn't tell me to this day that that's not my father. So he's the one that I look up to. That's the work ethic that he has, all the things he does, I strive to try to be that way. That is so awesome to hear. So, and how old's your son? He's 7. 7. Yes. Yeah, I remember 7. And I remember I had a 7-year-old daughter, but totally different. Yes. One of the things, Christopher, I'd like to ask all my guests, all right, it's something that impacted me when I was 21 years old. I had a boss that was giving me advice on how to do the job, not knowing that advice would turn out to become life advice. Mm-hmm. And what it was a part-time job, and I had problems dealing with someone else on staff, and I was working, it was a gas station attendant, working at night, running the gas station by myself. And I had a problem. So I go to my boss and he said, Tim, I want you to run this shift like you own this business. That turned into life advice and has made Tim take ownership of everything I do in my entire life. Did you have someone who gave you a piece of life advice that really wasn't life advice at the time? Maybe it was just to get you through something. And it turned out to be something that drives you to this day. Yes. My dad, when I first met him, I had a hard time communicating because I never had a male figure. So I didn't know how to do that. Mm-hmm. So he told me that you should be able to communicate and use your voice more because you never know, you may come across some young men like you who need to talk, or you may have a son one day. And then years later, I got my 7-year-old son and I'm at the point where I talk to him about everything. And I never thought that I'd be able to use that to the point where I'm talking to not only my son, but so many men that I mentor and walk alongside, whether it's at work or in my church, that I use to this day that I take to heart, that it's important for men to just talk about how they feel and not try to be all macho like everything's okay, that we need that platform to communicate. Yeah. Yeah. Amen. Yeah. I agree with you 100% on that one. So that's great that you got that advice. So yeah. Really kind of, it's been, again, when I got into interviewing you today, I had no idea what I was getting into because I really barely knew you other than looking at a couple episodes of your podcast. Right. Most people give me like an about page to go check them out. I didn't even have that. So I was like, okay, this is going to be good. Yes. And it has been. All right. You really, you have a very interesting story, Christopher, and you have a very interesting concept that I appreciate you coming on today and sharing with us. What is the website where they can get a hold of podcasts and find out what you're doing? So the website is oohisgettinggood.com. So that's what 2 O's and H is getting good. Yeah. And I came up with that name because I would watch a lot of movies and TV shows. And if it gets to the good part, I'm like, ooh, it's about to get good. So that's how I came up with the name of it. So when people listen, I hope that's the catchphrase they say. Yeah. So. I'm like, was that your hashtag at first before you started this? You're like, yeah, that's my hashtag, baby. It sounds like a great hashtag, to tell you the truth. Yes. But, yeah. Well, Christopher, as I said, everybody, it's always a joy having you on the show. But before you go, I've got a little 9-question quiz called This or That. It's a game I love to play with people like you. Okay. You ready? I'm ready. Number 1 question I've always asked in This or That is, it Star Wars or Star Trek? Star Wars. Star Wars? Now, I know you're not even old enough to go to the original, are you? I went back and watched it. All right, yeah. I was a Star Trek fan at first, but Star Wars got me hooked. Yeah. Well, what was the first Star Wars movie you've seen? The Phantom Menace was the first one. Was the first one? Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Us people who were,
alive in 76. I was 10 years old when the original came out. So,
Okay.
yeah. Cool. Well, you know what I mean? You seem to be a storyteller. So I went with two actors, and there's two Western actors. Which is the better of the two Western actors, John Wayne or Clint Eastwood?
I'm a Clint Eastwood fan, so I'm saying Clint Eastwood.
I know. I love them both, all right? But you know what I mean? It's like they both told Western stories great.
They did.
Yeah. So then we go to podcasts, all right? Are you an audio podcaster, or are you like doing video stuff?
Audio.
You are audio, yeah. I kind of figured that with the way the conversation went today. So yeah. Do you watch a lot of video ones or no?
I try to watch some of them, but the majority of the time I listen to podcasts when I'm driving. So I like the audio more.
Yeah. That's where I've started listening to mine in the car. But I during the pandemic I haven't driven that much. I've driven 2 miles to Starbucks and 2 miles back. Yeah.
Right.
How about we move to some food products? Hamburger or taco?
Hamburger.
Hamburger?
Yes.
Who makes your favorite hamburger? I gotta know.
So there's a place in Lincoln Park in Chicago called Butcher and the Burger.
Yeah.
Oh, you talk about burger that melts in your mouth. That's how good their burgers are.
Uh-huh. See, I grew up loving McDonald's hamburgers.
Okay.
Which, like, are they're not even like the kiddies hamburgers of hamburgers, if you really want to be real about it, right? But I loved them growing up, which made me love hamburgers to where now I'm picky. We have a thing down here. We haven't recently because the two closest ones to me closed was called Smash Burger. Have you ever had Smash Burger?
Never heard of it.
Oh, they've got this just like Chipotle Southwest Baja burger that is just awesome. Yeah,
it sounds delicious.
Yeah. But yeah, down here in Texas, we have an argument between In-N-Out Burger or Whataburger. Have you had a Whataburger or no?
I had both.
Have you? Yeah.
And I more leaning towards In-N-Out.
Yeah, I'm a Texan, but I like In-N-Out Burger better than Whataburger. How about when you're out having something to drink? You're going to have a bottle of beer, or are you going to have a glass of wine?
More wine than beer.
Okay.
Like I said, I've been getting into the ciders lately, so I like those too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to do. I remember the ciders come out. I can't remember what brand it was. Oh, the Angry Orchard.
Angry Orchard. Yep.
Yeah. When they came out, we have season tickets to the Dallas Mavericks here, and they had them there for the longest time. And there was this one lady who served them. This one tiny little lady who served at a certain booth. And I'd walk in and I'd walk to her booth, and then I'd walk all the way back around the other side of the stadium to go to my seat because I wanted to get my Angry Orchard from her. Okay. All right. And then they stopped serving them. And I'm like, now I got to buy beer because they don't have any orchard. They don't have cider there anymore. But anyway, yeah, I'm into craft. If I'm going to do beer, I want craft beers.
Okay.
I'm going to do wine. I want it from the winery. I don't want to go to the grocery store.
Right.
Yeah. So.
And for me, for beers, I'm just not that well versed in what is a good beer to try. So if someone took me, I'm open to trying.
So when we were doing that beer bus thing in Chicago, the guy did this. The guy who was the host on the bus, not the driver, the host of the show, right? I don't know what you call him, but he did this whole story going between stops. And this one story between stops, he started talking about the river and how the river went the wrong way and stuff like that. And they did everything they could to switch the condition of the river and flow it the opposite way. Uh-huh. All right. And the people down in St. Louis got so mad that they bottled the water from it and turned it into beer and sold Budweiser back to Chicagoans.
That's a good story. I never heard that one.
Oh, no. It's a story that he put together on the bus. And I'm just thinking about you and stories. I'm like, you got to go find this guy because that story had me going the whole time until he goes, yeah, and the people in St. Louis were so mad at the water being flowing that way, they decided to turn it into beer and sell it back to the people in Chicago as Budweiser.
Right.
How about ice cream? Chocolate or vanilla?
Vanilla.
Vanilla? All right. Mm-hmm. Batman or Superman?
Ooh. I got to go with Bruce.
Batman. You got to go with Bruce?
Yes.
No, I was just on another class, mastermind class earlier today, and we were talking about Batman and how Batman's real powers wasn't Batman. It was Alfred the butler.
Right, it was.
And I had to sit and think about that for a minute. You're right, it was.
Yeah, he was behind the scenes.
Yep. So my next two are the controversial questions I like to ask everyone just to put a little snap into my podcast ending, and that is, The toilet paper at your house, does it go over on the roll or under?
Under.
Under? All right.
Yep.
Now, Christopher, I've asked that question to people who've been on my podcast who are like sunshine, rainbows, unicorns people, all happy-go-lucky. And I ask them that question, and their answer, they have fangs come out on that answer.
Oh, man.
And I'm like, dude.
That's a thing.
Yeah, like what happened to be all Mr. Happy-go-lucky and Mr. like everything's so positive, all right? And we bring out that subject, and you're like Mr. Angry. What's up, dude? My last one, and I always love asking the guys this one because I'm the only guy who can ask underwear questions to another guy, and that is boxers or briefs.
I'm a boxer brief, so the mixture of both.
Me too. Again, only I can have a podcast to ask guys about their underwear. I don't know.
Yes.
and get away with it. Yeah. So, Christopher, one more time, tell them that website so they can come out and check out that podcast you guys got going out there.
So it's oohisgettinggood.com. That's with 2 O's and the H is gettinggood.com. You can follow me there. And then there's a section where you can stream me for whatever streaming device you have. So if it's Apple, Spotify, Google, you can go there as well too.
Yeah, you got like the whole thing connected with like 20 some odd like me?
I do, yes.
Yeah. That's the power of podcasting that people aren't getting right now.
Right.
Like you put it on one place and it literally goes everywhere. Yeah.
I didn't know it could do that, but once it did, I was like, this is amazing.
Like the superpower. Like, wow.
Right.
It's getting good.
It is.
Well, thank you for being on the show, Christopher. I really appreciate you spending time.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate being on.
Yeah, okay. Hey, to you guys, the listeners, go check out this podcast of Christopher Guys, all right? It's gettinggood.com. I'm telling you guys, you are not going to regret checking that one out. It is just, he's got a great concept, great thing. Connect with him if you can, all right, and see what else that he can help you with as well. If you haven't done it by now, subscribe to our podcast where you get your podcast in one of those 25 spots we just got done talking about, all right? And subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. I'm Tim Gillette with the Tim Gillette Show, and I'll be back with another cool guest really soon. In the meantime, guys, have a great day. Bye.